Good morning. It is Friday, the 4th of February. We continue the exciting saga of Abraham. Yesterday, we spoke about the burial of Sarah. Today, we pick up Abraham seeking a wife for their son, Isaac. Abraham, realizing that he is getting on in age and perhaps understanding that he is now entering those twilight years of his life on earth, desires to have his son Isaac married before Abraham, was to die. And so Abraham takes initiative and he sends his head steward or most senior servant, presumably Eliezer, who we had met earlier and who would have inherited from Abraham if no child had been born. Abraham sends this man to his own home country because he does not want Isaac to marry one of the local ladies because they were of a different faith. And certainly, very importantly, in Abraham's mind, of a different family group. And so Eliezer, if that's who it is, sets off. He has great authority. He takes 10 camels, all of them laden with goods and wealth from his master, Abraham, and he sets off. And many days later, he arrives in the town of Nahor, which may well have been named after the brother to Abraham. And as he arrives, it's late afternoon, he comes to the well, he's been traveling all day, he is thirsty, and he knows that he needs to rest and give himself and his camels water. And we notice that he says a prayer. It's a very profound prayer. Now, at no point in Scripture is Eliezer, if that is who the senior steward is described as himself being a follower of God. And yet, obviously, the witness of Abraham is rubbed off. And we must pause at this point and ask, does our witness rub off on those around us, whether it is our particular family or those who work with us or even those who work for us? Does our influence rub off on them? Either way, Eliezer says this incredible prayer in which he asks God to show him who a lady is to be the wife for Isaac. And he kind of stipulates that the woman is to be incredibly generous and willing to go that extra mile, who would then offer him something to drink and offer to provide water for his camels. There's 10 of them, and we know that camels drink quite a lot, so this was not some simple task. And he's no sooner finished praying than a woman walks up. We know her to be Rebecca because Scripture identifies her immediately, and he asks her, would you mind awfully if you give me something to drink? And he leaves that as the question, and she immediately and graciously, generously responds. And once he's had his fill, she says, I will also water your camels. That's the exact request that the senior steward, we presume it's Eliezer, had asked of God. So there's a way in which God actually had answered the prayer of Eliezer even before he had made the prayer. And another little sidebar point here is that is how God works. He doesn't always wait for us to say the prayer and then slowly begin the process of answering it. God is proactive, and he often knows our needs even before we know it. And so when we say our prayer, God has already begun to put in action the answer to that prayer. And sometimes it is as immediate as happened here. At other times, it takes a little longer. It's not because God is slumbering and needs to wake up and catch up what's happening in the world. God is very aware of what's happened in the past and the present and the future. So Rebecca becomes, and the story stops. We're in Genesis 24, verses 1 to 27. The story stops as Rebecca invites the senior steward and his camels to her father's house. She rushes off to tell the family. And we'll have to pick up the story again from next week. But of course, there's Saturday, Sunday in between, Monday, where I don't do my little talks, so you can read ahead a little bit and find out what happened. So just remember, God answers our prayer well in advance of our asking it. But we must nevertheless ask God, because that is a sign of faith and holiness, by bringing those prayers to God, not simply being laissez-faire and saying, well, if God knows everything, then I won't have to ask him anything, because he'll simply do it anyway. That I think is just taking God for granted. So there's great merit in asking God our prayers, and to do so in faith. Folks, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll chat again next week. God bless.